Picture this. A drama professor at a Washington, D.C. university opens a forgotten shoebox sitting on top of some faculty mailboxes. Inside, crumpled like trash, is a faded scrap of blue and white gingham. And that scrap of fabric? It's worth $1.5 million. Now imagine 13 more stories like that. Dresses hidden in tombs for 5,000 years. Gowns that nearly set their wearers on fire. A medieval queen's golden dress that women in labor used to beg to wear. A 10-pound ball gown so heavy it almost crushed the woman wearing it. A silk dress that was patented in 1909. And the inventor destroyed the machine so nobody could ever copy it. These are not just dresses. These are survivors. Each one of them is locked behind museum glass right now. From London to Vienna, from Philadelphia to the Met in New York. And every single one of them is hiding a secret most people will never hear about. We're counting down the top 14 most valuable dresses preserved in museums today, ranked by money, by rarity, by cultural obsession, and by the sheer "you've got to be kidding me" factor of the stories behind them. Quick favor before we dive in. If you love hidden history nobody else talks about, hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, and it means the world. Thank you. Number 14. This one is going to break your heart a little. Picture a wedding dress that was once the most expensive gown in the entire American West. Custom-made silk, dripping in lace, designed to scream untouchable wealth. Now picture that same dress today, sitting in the History Colorado Museum. The silk shattered, the fabric blackened with dark blooms of mildew, the ruffles flattened like roadkill. The dress belonged to Elizabeth Baby Doe Tabor. She married silver magnate Horace Tabor in 1883, at the absolute peak of America's silver boom. They were one of the wealthiest couples on the planet. Her wedding was so lavish, so dripping in diamonds and silver and silk that newspapers couldn't stop talking about it for months. And then the silver crashed. Horace died completely penniless. Baby Doe spent the next 3 decades living in a freezing wooden shack outside an abandoned mine called the Matchless. No money, no friends, just trunks of her old dresses, including her wedding gown. The only reason the dress survived at all? A group of nuns at a Leadville hospital took pity on her and let her hide her trunks in their warm storage rooms. In 1935, Baby Doe tragically passed away in that freezing shack. They found her on the floor. When her belongings were finally exhibited, the Denver Post ran a brutal front-page headline, "Finery of Tabor Women Crumbles Like Their Lives." Curators today openly call this gown the most valuable treasure in their entire collection, even though, as they sadly admit, it's discolored with age and perhaps ruined from water and mildew. It's a wedding dress that perfectly mirrors a wedding gone wrong. And it just gets darker from here. Number 13. Buckle up, because this dress is older than the pyramids. Picture a fragile, ghostly wisp of pale linen, V-necked, long-sleeved, with delicate knife pleats still visible at the shoulders. The fabric is so thin, you can see through it like fog. It looks like something a fashion student might sew today. This is the Tarkhan dress, currently preserved at the Petrie Museum in London. It is, officially, the oldest woven garment in human history. And here's the part nobody tells you. When archaeologists found it in an Egyptian tomb back in 1913, they didn't even realize what they had. They tossed it into a pile of dirty rags and ignored it for 64 years. 64 years. The single oldest dress on Earth, sitting in a box of trash. It wasn't until 1977 that conservators at the V&A finally unfolded the bundle and realized they were holding a miracle. But here's the detail that gives me chills every time. When they unwrapped it, they noticed the dress was turned completely inside out, like someone had pulled it over her head and yanked it off in a panic. Or, and this is what historians quietly believe, like a girl had worn it her whole life, and then someone pulled it off her body one last time before they buried her. You can still see the creases at the elbows, where she bent her arms. 5,000 years ago, and there are bodily stains in the armpits, actual DNA evidence that scientists today are too terrified to test because they don't want to destroy the only sample they have. This dress is older than the wheel, older than the alphabet, and it's only number 13. Number 12. Now we jump 4,500 years forward and head to a cathedral in Sweden, where the world's only surviving medieval royal gown is hiding behind glass. Picture a small bell-shaped gown made from Italian silk brocade, woven with real gold thread. The pattern shows laurel garlands wrapped around clusters of pomegranates. Today, most of the gold has faded to a soft bronze, but in the right light, it still glows like a sunset. And here's the wild part. It's child-sized. The dress is traditionally linked to Queen Margareta of Denmark, one of the most powerful women in medieval Scandinavia. But here's what almost nobody knows. For hundreds of years, this gown wasn't kept in a museum. It was kept at Roskilde Cathedral on top of Margareta's tomb as a holy relic. According to medieval tradition, the dress had miraculous power hours. Women in difficult childbirth would beg the church to loan them the gown. They believed wearing it, or even just touching it, would save their lives. Church records actually document this. It was treated like a saint's bone. Then in 1659, during a brutal war between Denmark and Sweden, Swedish forces stole it as war booty, took it back to Uppsala Cathedral where it sits today. Denmark has never gotten it back. It's been 366 years. When Sweden briefly loaned it to Denmark in 2021 for a single exhibition, Danish newspapers ran headlines that just said, "She's home," like a returning queen. There is nothing like this anywhere else in Europe. Not in the Louvre, not in the V&A, not in the Vatican. Every other medieval royal gown is gone, rotted, lost. This one survived because people believed it was magic. And the wildest part? They might have been right. Number 11. Stay with me, because we're heading to Imperial Vienna. And the most beautiful woman of the 19th century. Picture a floor-length cloud of white silk tulle, the skirt sweeping outward in soft layers like a falling galaxy. Scattered across the entire dress are 27 individual diamond and pearl stars, each one custom-made by the court jeweler Clover, matching star pins in her hair. Every step she took, the candlelight bounced off the diamonds and threw constellations onto the marble floor. The dress was designed by Charles Frederick Worth, the father of haute couture, and worn by Empress Elizabeth of Austria, known to the world simply as Sisi. Now here's where it gets unhinged, because Sisi wasn't just beautiful. She was obsessed with being beautiful, like modern-day influencer on her 10th skincare routine Obsessed, except in 1865, with infinitely more terrifying methods. She lived on orange juice and raw veal broth. She washed her ankle-length hair in cognac and egg yolks. And here's the one that stops people cold. She had her dresses literally sewn onto her body before every event, stitch by stitch, so the fit would be flawless, so nothing would wrinkle. Imagine standing perfectly still while someone sews you into a constellation. And then she sat for the famous Winterhalter portrait in this exact gown. She was 28, and she made a decision right there, in that moment, that this was how she wanted to be remembered. So from age 32 onwards, she refused to ever be photographed or painted again for the next 30 years, until the day she died. The original silk hasn't fully survived, but the original Kokert diamond stars are preserved at the Sisi Museum in the Hofburg Palace. Each one sells at Sotheby's today for over 100,000 euros. She was the woman who froze herself in time. The original, "I peaked at 28 and I'm never letting anyone see me age." And this dress is the prison she built around her own face. Okay, I need to lighten the mood, because the next one involves Salvador Dali, mayonnaise, and a giant lobster. Number 10, yes, that lobster dress. Picture a floor-length ivory silk evening gown, whisper light, almost translucent, cinched with a crimson silk sash, and then splashed across the front of the skirt is an enormous, hand-painted scarlet lobster, surrounded by tiny sprigs of parsley, like someone just plated dinner on a Parisian bride. The dress was designed by Elsa Schiaparelli, the Italian-born surrealist designer who was Coco Chanel's biggest rival. And here's the thing though, the lobster wasn't even Schiaparelli's idea. The lobster was drawn by Salvador Dali himself, in pencil, and then printed onto the silk. And Dali, being Dali, had one more demand for the photo shoot. He wanted to slather real mayonnaise all over the finished dress. Schiaparelli said no. I love her for it. The dress was worn by Wallis Simpson, the American socialite, for her famous Cecil Beaton Vogue photo shoot at the Château de Condé in 1937. Vogue dedicated 8 full pages to that shoot. It became one of the most talked about dresses on earth. It now lives at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and it's the only known surviving example, just one, in the entire world. Here's the most beautiful part. Schiaparelli and Wallis became friends for 40 years afterwards. And Wallis, to honor that friendship, never bought a single piece from Coco Chanel for the rest of her life. Not one. She kept that promise until the day she died. A friendship sealed with a giant lobster. Surrealism wins. Number 9. Schiaparelli and Dali weren't done. Picture a slim, severe, floor-length black silk gown, high-necked, long-sleeved, clinging to the body like a second skin. From a distance, it looks like a classic 1930s evening dress. Then you look closer, and you realize the entire human skeleton is bulging out of the fabric. The ribcage, the spine, the pelvic bones, the kneecaps, all padded outward in 3 dimensions, pushing against the silk like bones trying to escape the body. This is the skeleton dress, designed by Schiaparelli in 1938 with Dali for her circus collection. It uses an exaggerated old quilting technique called trapunto, where you stitch the design on the outside, then stuff cotton wadding behind it to make it bulge out in 3D. Schiaparelli took this delicate little embroidery method and weaponized it. In 1938, Paris society was horrified. The press called it an offense against good taste. Wearing it to a dinner party was the equivalent of showing up in a hearse. But here's what almost no one knows. The dress was purchased and gifted by an eccentric British poet and surrealist patron named Edward James, the same Edward James who commissioned Dali's famous Lobster telephone. He was so obsessed with dressing his friends in surrealist art that he racked up a bill of 86,237 French francs in just 6 months, buying the wildest pieces Schiaparelli ever made. It now lives at the V&A in London. It is the only surviving original in the world. Every dark, gothic, anatomical thing Alexander McQueen ever designed, every Lady Gaga skeleton corset, every Met Gala bone moment, none of it would exist without this one dress from 1938. But the next dress on this list, it doesn't haunt you with bones. It haunts you with math, 10 pounds of it, sewn into a single skirt, and the man who designed it paid for it with his entire life. Number 8. Can you imagine strapping 10 pounds of pure math to your waist just to go to a party? The Clover leaf is one of the most absurd, gravity-defying gowns ever stitched. The bodice is a tight whisper of pale pink silk, and then from the waist, it explodes outward into this massive sculptural skirt of saffron taffeta and black velvet. Look at it from directly above. The hem forms a perfect 4-leaf clover. The designer was Charles James, an American couturier so obsessive that Christian Dior himself called him the greatest talent of my generation. Balenciaga said James was the only man in the world who raised dressmaking from an applied art to pure art. But here's the thing. Charles James didn't see himself as a dressmaker. He saw himself as an architect. He used actual geometry equations to calculate the curves of his skirts. The 4 lobes of the clover are mathematically unequal, but somehow they fit into a perfect circle. He worked it out with circumference and radius, like he was building a cathedral. And it cost him. Austin Hearst commissioned this dress for a major 1953 gala. Charles James missed the deadline. He could not stop tweaking the geometry. He literally let the woman down on her own night because the math wasn't perfect yet. The secret inside the gown? An internal scaffolding of 30 hidden pattern pieces, boned and weighted like the steel frame of a building. The whole dress weighs 10 pounds. Imagine dancing in that. James called this dress his pinnacle in dressmaking. He died bankrupt in the Chelsea Hotel in 1978, surrounded by his own masterpieces, with no one left to wear them. The dress now lives at the Met, and it was the absolute centerpiece of their record-breaking 2014 exhibition. He was a genius who could not stop, and this dress is the proof he paid for with his life. Number 7, stay with me, because this dress is engineered to flutter like a peacock, even when it's standing completely still. Picture a strapless evening gown made from layered silk net covered in thousands of iridescent sequins. The skirt is built from massive overlapping petals that fade from deep midnight blue at the top down to shimmering sea green at the edges. The wearer doesn't just step into this dress, she blooms out of it, like a goddess rising from a flower. The Junon was designed by Christian Dior in his fall 1949 collection, the mid-century line, named after Juno, the Roman goddess of marriage. Her sacred animal, the peacock, and the entire dress is built to be one. Now here's the part Dior never got the credit for. The real magician behind this gown was a man named René Béguet, nicknamed Rebé, and he was, hands down, one of the greatest embroiderers who has ever lived. Rebé hand-dyed every single sequin on this dress himself, toxic chemicals, batch after batch, just to get that perfect fade from blue to green. People who saw him work didn't call it embroidery. They said he was painting with beads, and the dress does something that I still can't get my head around. The petals on the skirt are stitched together so precisely that they physically move when the wearer doesn't. Catch a breeze, catch the light, the skirt flutters on its own, like real peacock plumage breathing, a dress that breathes. From 1949, the Junon now lives at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, donated in 1953. Dior tried to recreate the magic with a brand new version in 2017. They called it New Junon, and critics very politely admitted that the House of Dior, 70 years later, is still trying to copy its own homework because real perfection, the kind Rebé pulled off, is almost impossible to repeat unless you stop trying to copy nature and start hiding secrets inside the seams instead, which is exactly what the next designer did. And what he hid inside this next dress, most people are still staring right at it, and they don't even see it. Number 6. Okay, pop quiz. Look at the Mondrian dress for 1 second, and you'll think you know exactly what it is. A simple wool jersey shift, sliced into blocks of red, yellow, blue, and white by thick black grid lines, like someone wrapped a Piet Mondrian painting around a woman. But here's the thing, nothing about this dress is what you think it is. This is the Yves Saint Laurent Mondrian dress, launched in 1965, and what almost everyone gets wrong is this. The colored blocks are not printed on the fabric. I'll say it again because it took me a while to believe it. Nothing is printed. Every red square, every yellow square, every blue square, every black line. They are all separate pieces of fabric, cut, dyed, and sewn together one by one. Now here's the genius move. A dress needs darts, a dress needs seams, a dress needs to curve around a body. So where did Saint Laurent put all that messy tailoring? He hid it inside the black lines. Every single seam, every single dart, every single bust shape. All of it is camouflaged inside the thick black grid, so the dress looks completely flat, completely seamless, like a painting that somehow walked off the wall and put itself on a woman. That's the trick. That's the magic. That's why fashion historians still lose their minds over this dress. Cheap knockoffs were flooding the streets within weeks. Stores were ripping it off before Saint Laurent had even finished his next collection. It became the unofficial uniform of the 1960s art world. But here's the most important thing about this dress. It is the exact moment in history when haute couture and fine art finally collided. Museums had been refusing to display fashion as real art for decades. The Mondrian dress kicked that door down. Today it's preserved in both the V and A and the Met. It is the dress that made fashion officially count as art. And speaking of art that hides its real story, wait until you see what's coming next. Number 5. Quick pattern interrupt, because this one is genuinely unhinged. This is the dress where a 19th century socialite almost set herself on fire to win a party. Picture a glittering yellow satin gown by Charles Frederick Worth, the father of haute couture. Heavy embroidery of gold and silver thread in a lightning bolt pattern down the skirt, dripping in glass beads, pearls, and a sparkling headdress. The wearer carried a torch held high in the air, like the Statue of Liberty. The torch actually lit up. In 1883, the wearer was Alice Claypool Vanderbilt. She wore the dress to a single party, the party of the Gilded Age, that cost the equivalent of about $8 million in today's money. Photographers were lined up outside. Police had to hold back the screaming crowds. And here's the thing nobody talks about. In 1883, the light bulb was basically magic. Edison had only patented his version 4 years earlier. Almost no one in America had ever seen one. And Alice Vanderbilt, to make sure she would win the most talked about costume of the night, hid an early experimental battery pack somewhere inside that highly flammable silk dress to power the bulb. Batteries in 1883 leaked acid. They generated dangerous heat. Mixing a leaking, heat-generating battery with yards of flammable silk satin, that was insane. She could have turned into a human torch in front of every important person in New York. She didn't care. The pose she struck, torch held above her head, was so dramatic that newspapers literally compared her to the Statue of Liberty, which wasn't even fully built yet. The dress survived. It is preserved today at the Museum of the City of New York. Curators handle it like radioactive treasure because it's not just a dress. It's the moment electricity itself became fashion. Number 4, you already know this dress. Even if you've never seen Breakfast at Tiffany's, you know this dress. Floor-length Italian satin, sleeveless with a daring asymmetrical cutout at the back, triple-strand pearls, long black gloves, oversized tortoiseshell sunglasses, a tiara nested in dark hair. It is the most famous little black dress in cinematic history. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Audrey Hepburn was the second choice. When director Blake Edwards started prepping the film in 1960, the studio originally hired the legendary Spanish designer Cristobal Balenciaga to design Holly Golightly's wardrobe. Balenciaga flatly refused, wouldn't even take the meeting. Hepburn, panicking, suggested her favorite designer instead, a young, almost unknown French couturier named Hubert de Givenchy. And the rest is history. Hepburn would later say, Givenchy's clothes are the only ones I feel myself in. He is more than a designer. He is a creator of personality. Now here's where it gets fun. Most people assume there's just one of these dresses preserved somewhere. Wrong. Givenchy actually made 3 identical copies for the production, in case one got torn or stained. One stayed in the Givenchy archives. One went to the Museo del Traje in Madrid. And one, kept by Givenchy his entire life, was donated to a charity foundation after Hepburn's death in 1993. In 2006, that charity copy went to auction at Christie's. Presale estimate, around £100,000. Final hammer price, $923,187. Nearly 6 times the estimate. An anonymous buyer. And one last secret. The original hemline that Givenchy designed was much shorter. Paramount Studios forced him to lengthen it at the last minute to make it floor length, to get it past censors. The most famous dress in cinematic history, saved by a polite no from one designer and a sudden yes from another. Number 3, now we come back to where we started. The shoebox. Picture a blue and white gingham cotton pinafore over a crisp white puffed sleeve blouse, each gingham square about half an inch wide. Inside the bodice, 2 faded cotton tape labels, Judy Garland. Inside the seam of the right side of the skirt, a tiny hidden pocket, just big enough to hide a handkerchief, the one Dorothy uses to wipe the Cowardly Lion's tears. This is the Dorothy dress from The Wizard of Oz, 1939, designed by MGM legend Adrian. There are several known surviving examples in museums, one at the Smithsonian, one at the Wizard of Oz Museum in Florida, one in private hands, and then there was the lost one. Back in 1973, the actress Mercedes McCambridge gifted one of the original dresses to a drama professor named Father Gilbert Hartke at Catholic University in Washington, D.C. Father Hartke stored it in a shoebox. The shoebox got pushed onto a shelf. Father Hartke died, the decades passed, 50 years passed. In 2021, during a renovation, a drama lecturer named Matt Ripa pulled down a random shoebox sitting on top of some faculty mail slots. He opened it. He was staring at $1.5 million. But here's where the story explodes. The moment the university announced they were going to auction the dress, the niece of the late Father Hartke filed a federal lawsuit. She said the dress was her stolen inheritance. A federal judge halted the auction at the last possible moment. The legal battle dragged on for 2 years. The judge himself wrote that for over 80 years, the public has been fascinated by the film, and the controversy over the dress ownership has only generated more interest. A pinafore, a shoebox, $1 million lawsuit, and the secret pocket sewn in to hide a lion's handkerchief. This dress isn't just a costume. It's a story Hollywood couldn't have written better itself. Number 2, I don't have to describe it. You've already seen it. But let me try anyway. Ivory silk taffeta, woven by hand in Suffolk. The bodice overlaid with antique Carrick-Macross lace. Lace that originally belonged to Queen Mary, embroidered with 10,000 mother-of-pearl sequins and pearls. Enormous puffed taffeta sleeves with cloud-like ruffles. And a 25-foot sequin-encrusted train, the longest in royal wedding history. The dress was made by a husband and wife duo named David and Elizabeth Emanuel. They were 27 and 28 years old, almost completely unknown. And here's the secret that almost no one ever talks about. The Emanuels were so paranoid the design would leak to the press that they secretly made an entire second wedding dress. A backup, a spare, just in case the real one got photographed and copied before the wedding day. Diana never knew the spare dress existed. She found out decades later, and there are more secrets. The morning of the wedding, Diana accidentally spilled perfume on the silk, leaving an oil stain. The train was so long. The designers didn't realize until the last second that it wouldn't fit inside the glass carriage, and you can see in the actual wedding footage that the dress is visibly wrinkled when she steps out. She had to be smoothed down before walking up the aisle. And the most beautiful secret of all, sewn inside one of her shoes was an 18-karat gold horseshoe encrusted with diamonds, a tiny good luck charm she carried in secret all day. The lace on her bodice was a piece of Queen Mary's old lace, a hidden thread between great-grandmother-in-law and bride. Watched live by an estimated 750 million people, the most watched wedding in human history. The dress is now jointly owned by William and Harry and was loaned to Kensington Palace for the 2021 Royal Style in the Making exhibition. It is almost never displayed because there's only one, and it carried more weight than just fabric. Number 1, we saved this one for last. Because the Met's chief curator literally called it arguably the most important dress of the 21st century. Picture a corseted bodice in sand-colored silk, ripped and shredded at the bottom edge to look like a broken shell. From the waist down, the skirt is made from hundreds of individual hand-cut circles of organza, layered in radiating tiers like the inside of an oyster opening. The hem rolls and foams across the floor like surf. The model walked the Paris runway with wet hair and smudged makeup, as if she'd just washed ashore from a shipwreck. It took 3 master artisans an entire month just to cut and assemble the organza layers. And here's the wildest part. When the Met staged its blockbuster exhibition Savage Beauty in 2011, the chief curator, Andrew Bolton, made a controversial decision. Instead of carefully steaming and arranging the skirt perfectly, the conservators literally pulled and dragged the fabric off the mannequin, on purpose, to make it look more chaotic, more shipwrecked, more alive. In a museum, they broke the rules of conservation on purpose to honor what McQueen actually wanted. Savage Beauty drew over 661,000 visitors. People waited in line for over 3 hours just to see it. And here's the part most people don't know. Only 2 of these dresses exist in the world. The Met owns one. The other was bought from Neiman Marcus by a Texas socialite, sold to a vintage boutique, and then finally bought by Kim Kardashian, who wore it to a 2020 Oscars after-party. Conservators have warned that wearing it again risks destroying it forever. But here's the gut punch ending. 8 years later, McQueen's assistant assistant, a quiet British designer named Sarah Burton, used the same hand-cut organza technique that built the Oyster dress to design Kate Middleton's wedding dress in 2011, a line of beauty that started in a Paris runway shipwreck, ran through the Met, and ended up on the most-watched royal wedding of the modern era. That is why the Oyster dress is #1, because it isn't just one dress, it's a bloodline. 14 dresses, 5,000 years, 6 countries, hundreds of thousands of stitches sewn by hands long gone. And what I love about all of them, what really got me writing this, is that none of these gowns are really about fashion. They're about people. A teenage girl whose elbows wore creases into linen 5,000 years ago. A queen whose dress was passed around to women in labor. A bankrupt couturier who died alone in a hotel room obsessed with mathematical perfection. A young woman who spilled perfume on her wedding silk and had to walk out of a wrinkled carriage in front of 750 million people. A drama professor who hid $1 million pinafore in a shoebox and forgot about it. These dresses are the skins their wearers left behind, the shape of bodies that altered history. Sweat, perfume, panic, joy, all of it locked into silk and linen and organza, sealed behind museum glass. And here's the part I can't stop thinking about. In an age of fast fashion and AI-generated clothes, in an age where most dresses won't survive a single washing machine, we have these: hand-painted lobsters, hidden battery packs, trapunto quilted skeletons, lucky pennies sewn into shoes, tiny pockets hidden in pinafores so a lion could be comforted. Now I want to hear from you. Which dress shocked you the most? Was it the shoebox, the lobster, the mayonnaise, the secret spare wedding dress that Diana never knew about, or the Tarkhan dress, turned inside out by hands that lived before history was written? Drop your answer in the comments. The top 3 replies I'm pinning to the very top of this video. If any single moment in this video made you say, "Wait, what?" out loud, smash that like button. It actually helps a lot. And if you want more obscure historical deep dives that nobody else on YouTube is telling you about, subscribe. Next week, we're going inside the cursed paintings museums refuse to display in public. You don't want to miss that one. Until then, remember, these dresses outlived everyone who wore them. And as long as we keep telling their stories, they outlive us, too.